my name is Cameron Cowan. I'm host of the Cameron Cowan Show. I'm so glad that you stopped by. I'm excited to see you. I love it every time my fans stop by and watch a video. I really appreciate it. So, one of the big essays that I wrote in March was on climate change, and I titled it very simply, and this is going to cause lots of vitriol. People might quit watching or listening, whatever have you, and I said, I'm not ready to accept climate change. And I guess my big confession is I'm not a climate change denier, because the climate is changing. I'm not denying that. However, I am a climate change science narrative denier, if that makes any sense. In that I don't like the narrative, I'm not necessarily totally on board with all the science, and I'm really not okay with something that I have to believe in order to sign on to, because there's nothing else in my life of public policy that I would apply that to. I don't ask you to believe in the Electoral College. I explain to you what's wrong with it. I don't ask you to believe that we need to raise the minimum wage. I've shown you why that needs to happen. I don't ask for your faith on any other policy, but yet when it comes to our changing climate, which it is changing, when it comes to our changing climate and our involvement in it, all of a sudden I have to break out faith and be like, well, I just need you to do this, and I just need you to have faith in me. If it is so clear, if it is so overwhelming, why do I have to believe in it? Just in terms of the climate science narrative, just think about that for a moment. If it is so clear and it is so definitive and it's something that absolutely is going to happen and is happening and we're causing it, why do I have to take it by faith? There should be overwhelming, indisputable, no need for consensus evidence. And there are still people who are saying, no, this is a narrative, this is an economic narrative, this is a political narrative, it serves certain interests. Al Gore has been hawking this since the 70s, all this sort of thing, and we need you to believe in it. And I'm just not ready for it. Our climate is changing. We know about ice, and it's moving and refreshing itself and melting away, and ice surface is changing, but guess what? And I learned this in the course of the essay. Because we track it by satellite, we've only had ice data since 1979, which means we don't know what the regular 100-year cycles of polar ice are. We know 38-ish years of ice and its flows and its expansions and contractions. When it comes to temperature rise, there's lots of problems with tracking temperature over a long period of time, and in this country we only have accurate temperature for about 200 years in most cases, maybe a little longer. There's many problems in terms of this type of data, and so what I did in researching the climate change article was I watched videos, I visited websites, I gathered evidence, all this sort of thing, and I ended up, although I was prepared to have my mind changed, and on a couple points I came to the conclusion that rather than trying to sell everyone on we need to stop this now so that we don't raise 1 degree of temperature in 100 years, which even babies born now will be old people by the time they see that, if they live that long. Rather than going by that narrative, I think the more productive narrative needs to be around what we can actionably do that actually will solve what's going on the planet. Let us save our wetlands. Let's clean up our oceans that are full of mess. Let's look for zero waste solutions. Let's have more sustainable indoor farming. Let's automate it. Let's do things that actionably move the conversation forward on our climate, on our planet, rather than saying, oh, well, it's just fossil fuels, and if we get rid of fossil fuels, that will all of a sudden be okay. For first, that's not practical right now. I wish it were, but it's not. And for second, even our so-called green solutions have an imprint of their own. As I talk about, solar panels are made from precious metals. and rare earths that have to be dug out of the ground and extracted using fossil fuels. So even your green technology has a fossil fuel footprint because it has to take fossil fuels to move it from the factory to where it is, and it will take fossil fuels to put it up in the field. And a lot of those things come in plastic, and that's made of oil. So even your green solutions have fossil fuel problems. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have more solar panels, we shouldn't have more windmills, although they kill birds, on all this type of thing. I'm not saying we shouldn't do any of those things. But we should not present them as the solution to the problem when they are not, because the sun does not always shine, the wind does not always blow. The tidal ones are better because the tide always goes. As long as we have the moon, the tides will move back and forth, and we'll power those. But still, even so, with all of that, all of those things still have some kind of fossil fuel impact. The narrative is just wrong. If we can encourage people to do things like get composting in their community, do 100% recycling, reduce the amount of waste we put out, that would move the conversation forward in such an actionable way. The planet would be better for it, and we would begin to see actionable changes in our climate when we do that. I think it is dangerous to say, oh, the planet's changing, the planet's dying, all this type of thing. We don't know that. The planet could simply be warming. It's done it before. Or it's cooled before, it's warmed before. We know this to some greater or lesser degree based upon weather reports from as far back as the Middle Ages. Although that data does have some problems, we know that the planet does do its changes, and it goes over very long cycles of time. So rather than trying to focus on trying to kill the world economy by trying to solve what could just be the planet changing, because this planet used to be a lot warmer, by this planet changing, lets us do things that we can actually do, achievable goals that people can feel good about now, today, and not have to wait 100 years for it, and things that would actually, solve real actionable problems that we really have to solve. Like, we do have to save rainforests. We do need to, grow more hemp and have more automated and sustainable, more chemical-free farming. We do have to do all of those things. We do have to clean up our oceans. Whether the planet warms or cools, all of those things still have to occur. And I think that creates a narrative for people that will get everyone on board with doing what we need to do to make sure that we leave a legacy of a quality planet to children and to people who are coming up in the future. And I think when it comes to climate change, it's a far, far better approach. So if you want to read me talk about all of this in more detail than I am right now, the link to the article is in the description. It's on the blog this month. I am very excited to be bringing this new article to you, and I look forward to your comments. You can write in, email at CameronCowan.net, Facebook.com/The Cameron Cowan Show, at Cameron Cowan to me personally, The Cameron C Show for the show, and CameronCowan.tumblr.com. And for all the news you need to know in 10 minutes or less, and why you should care about it, catch me here every Monday and Friday on YouTube, and every Saturday on our podcast. We'll talk soon now. Bye-bye.